Close your eyes for a moment and think about the last time you felt misunderstood. Maybe you said something with good intentions, but it came out wrong. Maybe you tried to convince someone, your boss, your partner, a client, a friend, and instead of agreement, you felt resistance. Or maybe you've watched other people walk into rooms, instantly connect with everyone, build trust effortlessly, and you wondered quietly, what do they know that I don't? Here is a truth most people discover too late in life. Success is rarely about intelligence, talent, or hard work alone. It is about people, your happiness, your career, your money, your confidence, even your inner peace. Almost all of it depends on how well you understand, connect with, and influence other human beings. And yet, no one really teaches us how to do that. We go to school and learn mathematics, history, science, and grammar, but we are never taught the most important subject of all, how to deal with people. That is why this book matters. Not just when it was written, but right now. In a world of social media, instant messages, arguments in comment sections, workplace stress, broken relationships, and constant misunderstanding, the ability to win friends and influence people is not a luxury. It is a survival skill. And this book, quietly and powerfully, has changed more lives than almost any other self-development book ever written. By the time you reach the end of this video, you will not just understand people better, you will understand yourself. You will see why conflicts happen, why people resist change, why compliments feel rare, why criticism backfires, and why some people seem to move through life with doors opening wherever they go. More importantly, you will learn how to become one of those people, without manipulation, without pretending, and without losing who you are. This is not a book about tricks. It is not about fake charm or clever tactics. It is about human nature. And once you understand human nature, life becomes easier in ways you never imagined. The man who wrote this book was not born confident, powerful, or influential. Dale Carnegie began as a poor farm boy in Missouri. His family struggled financially, and as a young man, he knew what it felt like to be invisible, to be ignored, and to feel insignificant. He tried many careers and failed at several of them. Sales didn't come naturally to him. Public speaking terrified him. And like many people, he struggled with self-doubt. What changed his life was a deep curiosity about people. Carnegie began studying psychology, philosophy, biographies of great leaders, and real-life stories of human behavior. He observed what made people listen, what made them cooperate, and what made them resist. He didn't study theory alone. He tested everything in real life. He taught classes, spoke to audiences, and watched carefully what worked and what failed. Over time, he discovered something revolutionary yet simple. People do not respond to logic first. They respond to emotion. They do not change because they are told to. They change because they feel understood, valued, and respected. That insight became the foundation of how to win friends and influence people. A book written not for scholars, but for everyday people who wanted better relationships, better careers, and a better life. Decades have passed since it was first published, but its principles remain timeless because human nature has not changed. As you listen, remember this. The goal is not to win people in the sense of control. The real victory is connection. When people feel safe with you, they open up. When they feel appreciated, they cooperate. When they feel respected, they listen. And when they feel understood, they trust. The first and most difficult lesson in this book begins with a hard truth about human behavior. Almost no one likes to admit they are wrong. Even when we are wrong, we defend ourselves. We justify our actions. We look for excuses. This is not a flaw of character. It is human nature. Our ego protects our sense of self, sometimes at all costs. Think about the last argument you had. Maybe someone criticized you. What was your immediate reaction? Did you calmly accept it, thank them, and change instantly? Or did you feel a surge of defensiveness? Did you explain yourself, argue back, or mentally reject their words? That reaction is exactly what Carnegie is talking about. Criticism, no matter how logical or well-intentioned, almost always creates resistance. When you criticize someone, you may feel superior or correct, but the other person feels attacked. And when people feel attacked, they stop listening. They don't think, this person is helping me. They think, I need to protect myself. Carnegie illustrates this with countless real-life examples, but the lesson is simple. If you want to change someone's behavior, attacking their pride is the worst way to start. People are driven by a deep need to feel important. When that need is threatened, cooperation disappears. This is why arguments rarely end with both people feeling satisfied. Even if you win the argument, you lose the relationship. The other person may agree outwardly, but inwardly they resent you. And resentment is far more dangerous than disagreement. Understanding this shifts the way you approach people completely. Instead of asking, how do I prove I'm right? You begin asking, how do I make this person feel understood? That single shift changes everything. Another powerful insight Carnegie shares is that appreciation is far more effective than criticism. But not shallow praise, genuine appreciation. People are starved for recognition. They go through life feeling unnoticed, undervalued, and taken for granted. A sincere acknowledgement of their effort, character, or intention can have a transformative effect. Think about your workplace. How often do people hear what they're doing wrong? Think about relationships. How often do we assume our loved ones know we appreciate them, without ever saying it out loud? Silence is not appreciation, and unexpressed gratitude helps no one. Carnegie emphasizes that appreciation must be honest. Flattery is cheap and often obvious. People can sense when praise is manipulative. But when appreciation comes from a genuine place, it creates loyalty, warmth, and trust. It makes people want to live up to that positive image you see in them. At the core of this idea is a profound understanding of motivation. People do things for their reasons, not yours. You may want someone to change, but unless that change aligns with something they desire, it will not last. Influence begins when you understand what drives the other person, their fears, their hopes, their pride, their need for security or recognition. Carnegie invites us to step outside ourselves. Most people spend their lives thinking, what do I want? What do I need? What do I believe? Very few stop to ask, what does the other person want? What are they afraid of? What matters to them? And yet, that question is the key to influence. When you show genuine interest in others, something magical happens. People feel seen. They feel important. They feel valued. And when people feel that way, they naturally open up. They want to talk. They want to connect. They want to help. This is why being a good listener is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Not listening to reply, not listening to correct, but listening to understand. When you allow someone to talk about themselves, their experiences, and their ideas, you give them a gift few people offer, and they will associate that positive feeling with you. You've probably met someone who made you feel interesting just by listening. They didn't interrupt. They didn't judge. They didn't compete. They simply paid attention. And afterward, you likely thought highly of them, even if they barely talked about themselves. That is the quiet power of listening. Carnegie also reminds us that a person's name is deeply personal. It is tied to their identity. Remembering and using someone's name may seem small, but it sends a powerful message. You matter. I see you. In a busy world where people feel like numbers, this small act can make a big difference. As the book unfolds, it becomes clear that influencing people is not about domination. It is about empathy. It is about understanding the emotional landscape of human interaction. When you approach people with respect instead of judgment, curiosity instead of assumption, and appreciation instead of criticism, resistance melts away. One of the most transformative ideas in the book is the concept of avoiding arguments altogether. This may sound counterintuitive. After all, how do you stand up for yourself without arguing? Carnegie's answer is subtle and wise. You can disagree without being disagreeable. You can express your perspective without attacking someone else's. When you begin by acknowledging the other person's point of view, you lower their defenses. When you admit that you could be wrong, you invite dialogue instead of debate. And when you let the other person save face, you preserve their dignity and your relationship. People rarely change their minds because they are cornered. They change when they feel respected. Influence works best when it feels like the other person's idea. This principle is especially powerful in leadership, parenting, and relationships. When you force compliance, you may get obedience, but you lose engagement. When you inspire cooperation, people move with you willingly. As you listen to these ideas, you may begin to see your past interactions differently. Moments where things went wrong suddenly make sense. Words you said that created distance. Criticism that backfired. Silence that was misinterpreted. This is not meant to create guilt. It is meant to create awareness. Because awareness is the beginning of change. And here is the hopeful truth. These skills are learnable. You do not need to change your personality. You do not need to become someone else. You simply need to align your behavior with how human beings actually work. As we continue, we will go deeper into the principles that shape friendships, careers, leadership, and influence. We will explore why people resist change, how to guide them gently, how to communicate in a way that builds trust, and how to leave people feeling better, not smaller, after interacting with you. This is not about winning arguments. It is about winning hearts. And when you win hearts, minds follow. And when you win hearts, minds follow. This idea becomes even clearer as Dale Carnegie begins to explore one of the most misunderstood aspects of human interaction, the desire to feel important. Every human being, no matter how confident or successful they appear, carries a quiet hunger inside them. It is the hunger to feel valued, respected, and significant. Many people chase money, status, or power not because they truly want those things, but because they believe those things will finally make them feel important. When this desire is ignored, people become bitter, defensive, or withdrawn. When it is attacked, people fight back. But when it is satisfied, genuinely and honestly, people blossom. They become cooperative. They become loyal. They become open. Carnegie explains that one of the most effective ways to satisfy this deep emotional need is through sincere appreciation. Not exaggerated praise, not empty compliments, but real recognition of effort, intention, or character. This requires awareness. It requires you to notice what most people overlook. Imagine a coworker who always shows up on time, who quietly handles responsibilities without complaining. Imagine a family member who supports everyone else but rarely hears thank you. Imagine a friend who listens to your problems but never shares owns. These people exist everywhere. When you acknowledge them, when you say out loud what they contribute, you do more than make them feel good for a moment. You strengthen the bond between you. Carnegie warns us about flattery because flattery is selfish. It is designed to get something. Appreciation, on the other hand, is generous. It gives without demanding. People instinctively feel the difference. Flattery feels hollow. Appreciation feels nourishing. This understanding leads to another powerful realization. If you want someone to do something, the best way is to make them want to do it. That may sound obvious, but most of us do the opposite. We pressure. We threaten. We nag. We explain logically why someone should act a certain way, forgetting that logic rarely moves human behavior on its own. Think about motivation in your own life. When do you perform your best work? When you are forced, or when you feel inspired? When you feel controlled, or when you feel trusted? The answer is the same for everyone. Carnegie encourages us to frame requests in a way that aligns with the other person's desires. Instead of saying, "You need to do this," you might say, "This would really help us achieve something important." Instead of focusing on what you want, you focus on what they gain: respect, growth, contribution, or pride. This approach is not manipulation. It is empathy. It is recognizing that people act from internal motivation, not external pressure. As the book unfolds further, Carnegie shifts from understanding human nature to building genuine connection. One of the simplest yet most powerful principles he shares is the importance of showing real interest in others. Most people enter conversations thinking about what they will say next. Very few enter conversations with curiosity. When you ask someone about their life, their work, their interests, and truly listen, you create an emotional connection. People love talking about what matters to them. And when you allow them to do that, they associate the pleasure of being heard with you. This is why Carnegie famously says that you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than in 2 years by trying to get people interested in you. That statement feels almost uncomfortable because it exposes how self-centered most interactions are. We are trained, often unconsciously, to promote ourselves. But connection flows in the opposite direction. Listening is not passive. It is active engagement. It means maintaining eye contact. It means not interrupting. It means resisting the urge to one-up someone's story with your own. It means creating a safe space where someone feels free to express themselves without judgment. And here is a subtle truth. When you listen well, people often reveal exactly how to influence them, not through force, but through understanding. You learn what they value. You learn what they fear. You learn what excites them. That knowledge is priceless. Carnegie also emphasizes the power of smiling. It may sound trivial, but a genuine smile communicates warmth, openness, and acceptance faster than words ever could. A smile says, "I am not a threat. I am glad to see you." In a world where many faces look tired, stressed, or guarded, a smile becomes a quiet act of kindness. Think about how you feel when someone greets you warmly versus indifferently. The emotional difference is immediate. That emotional difference shapes the entire interaction. Another deeply human insight Carnegie shares is the importance of remembering names. A person's name is not just a label, it is tied to their identity. When you remember someone's name, you tell them they matter enough to be remembered. When you forget, even unintentionally, it can feel dismissive. In professional settings, this can be especially powerful. Leaders who remember names build loyalty. Teachers who remember names build confidence. Friends who remember names build trust. As we move deeper into the book, Carnegie begins to address one of the most challenging areas of human interaction, disagreement. He makes a bold claim that the only way to truly win an argument is to avoid it. At first, this feels unrealistic. Life is full of disagreements. How can you avoid them? Carnegie does not suggest silence or submission. He suggests wisdom. He explains that arguments harden positions. When people feel challenged, they cling more tightly to their beliefs, even if those beliefs are wrong. Winning the argument may satisfy your ego, but it rarely changes the other person's mind. Instead, Carnegie encourages us to respect differences, to say, "I may be wrong," even when you feel confident. That simple phrase disarms defensiveness. It invites dialogue rather than combat. It shows humility, which is surprisingly persuasive. When you acknowledge another person's perspective, even partially, you create common ground. And common ground is where influence grows. This principle applies everywhere: marriages, friendships, workplaces, families. Many relationships break not because of major issues, but because of small arguments that slowly erode respect. Avoiding unnecessary conflict is not weakness. It is emotional intelligence. Carnegie also teaches the importance of letting others feel ownership of ideas. People support what they help create. When you force an idea on someone, they resist. When you guide them toward discovering it themselves, they embrace it. This is why good leaders ask questions instead of giving orders. This is why effective teachers encourage thinking instead of dictating answers. This is why successful parents guide instead of command. As you absorb these lessons, you may begin to notice a theme. Almost every principle in this book asks you to shift focus away from yourself and toward others, away from ego and toward empathy, away from control and toward understanding. This is not easy. Our instincts often push us in the opposite direction. When we feel insecure, we criticize. When we feel ignored, we talk louder. When we feel threatened, we argue. Carnegie's teachings invite us to pause, reflect, and choose a response that builds rather than breaks. In the next part of this journey, we will explore how these principles apply when you need to correct someone, lead people, or inspire change without creating resentment. We will dive into how to handle mistakes, how to motivate growth, and how to influence behavior while preserving dignity. Stay with that thought, because this is where Dale Carnegie's ideas become truly transformative in everyday life. Sooner or later, Every one of us faces the same uncomfortable situation. We need to correct someone. A coworker makes a mistake. An employee underperforms. A child behaves poorly. A partner forgets something important. And in that moment, we feel tension rise inside us. We want to fix the problem quickly. We want to point out what went wrong. We want improvement. But what we often forget is this. How you correct someone matters far more than what you correct. Most people handle mistakes by pointing them out bluntly. They criticize. They blame. They lecture. And while their intention may be improvement, the emotional result is usually resentment, embarrassment, or quiet rebellion. The person being corrected stops thinking about how to improve and starts thinking about how to protect their pride. Carnegie teaches that if you want to change someone without destroying the relationship, you must begin gently. Human egos are fragile. Even confident people feel a sting when they are told they are wrong. When correction comes wrapped in respect, people listen. When it comes wrapped in humiliation, they resist. One of the most powerful techniques Carnegie introduces is beginning with praise and honest appreciation before pointing out a mistake. This is not about sugarcoating or manipulation. It is about balance. When people feel seen for what they do right, they are more open to hearing where they can grow. Imagine being told, "You're careless and always mess this up," versus hearing, "You've done a great job handling this overall, and there's just one small thing we can improve." The difference is emotional safety. One attacks identity. The other focuses on behavior. Carnegie also suggests calling attention to mistakes indirectly. Instead of saying, "You did this wrong," you might say, "I once struggled with this too, and here's what helped me." This removes blame and replaces it with shared humanity. It says, "You're not alone. Mistakes are part of learning." This approach works because it protects dignity. When dignity is preserved, people remain open. When dignity is threatened, people shut down. Another deeply insightful principle is admitting your own mistakes before criticizing others. This requires humility, but it is incredibly powerful. When you say, "I've made mistakes like this myself," you lower defenses instantly. You create equality instead of hierarchy. The other person no longer feels judged from above. They feel understood beside you. Carnegie understood something many leaders miss. Authority does not come from superiority. It comes from trust. And trust grows when people see that you are human too. As the book moves forward, it becomes clear that leadership is not about commanding people. It is about inspiring them. True influence does not force behavior, it invites it. One of the most effective ways to inspire change is to appeal to a person's sense of identity. People want to live up to the image they have of themselves, or the image they believe others see in them. When you label someone positively, you give them something to live up to. If you treat someone as capable, responsible, and intelligent, they often begin to act that way. If you treat someone as careless or incompetent, they slowly become that version of themselves. Words shape identity more than we realize. Carnegie encourages us to give people a fine reputation to live up to. This means expressing confidence in their character and potential. It means saying, "I know you care about doing a good job," or "You've always been someone others can rely on." When people hear this, they don't want to disappoint that image. This principle is especially powerful in parenting and leadership. Children often become what they are repeatedly told they are. Employees often perform according to the expectations placed on them. Your belief in someone can quietly become their belief in themselves. Another crucial lesson Carnegie teaches is making the correction seem easy to fix. When a problem feels overwhelming, people avoid it. When it feels manageable, people act. Instead of framing mistakes as major failures, frame them as small adjustments. This shifts the emotional response from shame to confidence. People are far more willing to improve when they believe they can succeed. Carnegie also emphasizes allowing people to save face. Public embarrassment is one of the fastest ways to destroy morale. Correcting someone in front of others may feel efficient, but it leaves emotional scars. Private correction preserves dignity, and dignity is the foundation of respect. As you absorb these ideas, you may start to realize how often conflict arises not from the issue itself, but from how it is handled. Tone, timing, and empathy matter more than words alone. The book then gently moves into a broader understanding of influence in leadership and everyday life. Carnegie shows that people are not motivated by logic alone. They are motivated by emotion, meaning, and belonging. To influence people, you must speak to what they care about. This requires curiosity and attention. It requires asking questions instead of making assumptions. When you understand someone's goals, fears, and values, you can frame ideas in a way that resonates. This is why great leaders listen more than they speak. This is why effective communicators ask before they tell. This is why persuasion works best when it feels collaborative, not coercive. Carnegie reminds us that enthusiasm is contagious. When you believe deeply in something, others feel it. When you speak with energy and sincerity, people pay attention. Influence is not just what you say, it is how you feel while saying it. At this point in the journey, a powerful pattern emerges. Every principle in this book revolves around one core idea. Treat people with respect, and they will respond with openness. Threaten their pride, and they will respond with resistance. This applies not only to others, but to yourself as well. When you stop harshly criticizing yourself and begin acknowledging your own effort and growth, your confidence increases. When you model empathy internally, it becomes natural externally. Now let's take a moment to connect these ideas to modern life. In today's world, communication often happens through screens. Text messages lack tone. Social media amplifies judgment. Arguments escalate quickly. The principles Carnegie teaches are more relevant than ever. Imagine applying these ideas online. Instead of attacking opinions, you ask questions. Instead of correcting publicly, you respond privately. Instead of seeking to win debates, you seek to understand perspectives. Even in digital spaces, human nature remains the same. In the workplace, these principles can quietly transform careers. People who know how to make others feel valued are remembered. People who handle mistakes with grace are trusted. People who listen deeply become leaders, even without formal titles. In relationships, these ideas soften conflict. They replace blame with understanding. They turn arguments into conversations. They help love feel safe instead of fragile. And in your inner world, these lessons create peace. When you stop needing to prove yourself right, you feel lighter. When you focus on connection instead of control, life feels less like a battle. As we move toward the final part of this journey, everything begins to come together. You start to see that winning friends and influencing people is not about techniques you switch on and off. It is about who you choose to be in every interaction. It is about choosing kindness over ego, curiosity over judgment, respect over superiority. In the final stretch, we will bring all these ideas together and explore how you can begin applying them today in simple, practical ways, so that this book does not remain just something you listen to, but something that genuinely changes the way you live, speak, and connect. So let's slow everything down now and bring these ideas out of theory and into real life, because knowledge alone does not change people. Action does. And transformation happens not when you understand these principles intellectually, but when you practice them consistently in the quiet, ordinary moments of your day. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning with a new intention, not to impress anyone, not to dominate conversations, not to prove that you are right, but to make the people you encounter feel a little more understood than they did before they met you. That single intention, if practiced daily, has the power to reshape your relationships, your confidence, and even your identity. Let's start with the simplest place, your daily conversations. Most interactions pass by unnoticed. A greeting, a short exchange, a quick message. And yet, these small moments are where habits are built. When you greet someone, do you rush past them mentally, or do you pause and truly acknowledge them? Do you look at their face? Do you use their name? Start with appreciation. Speak privately. Focus on behavior, not character. Admit your own imperfections. Make improvement feel achievable. Protect their dignity. This approach does not make you weak. It makes you effective. People who feel respected are far more likely to improve than people who feel ashamed. Now let's talk about leadership. Not titles, not authority, but everyday leadership. Leadership happens whenever someone looks to you for direction, reassurance, or example. It happens in families, friendships, workplaces, and communities. To lead effectively, stop trying to push people and start inviting them. Ask questions instead of giving orders. Involve people in decisions when possible. Let them feel ownership. When people feel that their voice matters, their commitment deepens. Encourage effort, not just results. Praise growth, not just success. This builds confidence and resilience, especially in children and teams. Remember that people live up or down to the expectations placed on them. Now let's bring this inward, because influence begins with how you treat yourself. Many people sabotage their ability to connect with others because they are constantly criticizing themselves. They replay mistakes. They speak harshly internally. They carry shame. What if you applied Carnegie's principles to your inner dialogue? What if, instead of constant self-criticism, you acknowledged your effort? What if you corrected yourself gently instead of harshly? When you treat yourself with respect, it becomes natural to treat others the same way. Confidence does not come from superiority. It comes from self-respect. And self-respect grows when you align your actions with empathy and integrity. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Over time, practicing these principles changes the way people experience you. You become someone others feel safe around. Someone who listens. Someone who encourages. Someone who handles conflict with grace. Opportunities begin to appear, not because you chase them, but because people want to work with you, trust you, and recommend you. Relationships deepen. Misunderstandings decrease. And when conflicts do arise, they resolve faster and with less damage. This is not magic. It is cause and effect. Human behavior responds to emotional safety, respect, and understanding. Always has. Always will. And here is an important reminder. You will not apply these principles perfectly. No one does. You will forget. You will react emotionally. You will say the wrong thing. That is part of being human. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Each time you choose empathy over ego, you strengthen the habit. Each time you listen instead of interrupting, you build connection. Each time you appreciate instead of criticize, you shift the emotional climate around you. Now, as we approach the end of this journey, pause for a moment and reflect. Think about one relationship in your life that feels strained. One conversation you've been avoiding. One person you struggle to understand. How might these principles change the way you approach that situation? You don't need to fix everything at once. Start with one interaction, one conversation, one moment of presence. Dale Carnegie did not write this book to make people charming on the surface. He wrote it to help people live with more harmony, less conflict, and deeper connection. The influence he describes is not about control. It is about cooperation. It is not about winning over others. It is about walking with them. And now, the most important part, what you do next. If this message resonated with you, don't let it fade into background noise. Choose one principle from today and apply it immediately. Today, not tomorrow, not someday. Today, reach out to someone and express genuine appreciation. Listen fully to the next person who speaks to you. Avoid an argument that would normally pull you in. Correct someone gently. Small actions create big shifts. And those shifts, repeated day after day, quietly shape the direction of your life. Most people look for dramatic transformations. They want a single moment that changes everything. But human relationships do not work that way. Trust is built slowly. Influence grows quietly. Respect deepens through consistency, not intensity. Every time you choose patience instead of irritation, you are training your character. Every time you choose understanding instead of judgment, you are strengthening your emotional intelligence. Every time you choose appreciation instead of criticism, you are changing the emotional atmosphere around you. At first, the results may feel invisible. People may not immediately thank you. Situations may not instantly improve. But beneath the surface, something important is happening. You are becoming someone people feel good around. And that quality is rare. Over time, you will notice subtle changes. Conversations become easier. Conflicts resolve faster. People begin to open up to you without being asked. Opportunities come your way not because you demanded them, but because others trust you enough to offer them. This is the quiet power Dale Carnegie spent his life teaching. It is important to remember that none of these principles require you to be fake, loud, or overly agreeable. You do not need to abandon your boundaries. You do not need to suppress your opinions. You simply need to express them in a way that respects the humanity of others. There is a deep difference between kindness and weakness. Weakness avoids truth. Kindness delivers truth with care. Strength does not come from overpowering people. It comes from understanding them. As you practice these ideas, you may notice something else changing too: your inner world. When you stop constantly defending yourself, your mind becomes calmer. When you stop needing to win every interaction, your stress decreases. When you focus on connection instead of control, your confidence grows naturally. Confidence built this way is not loud. It does not need validation. It comes from knowing that you can handle people, not by force, but by wisdom. And perhaps the most beautiful result of all is this: when you treat people with respect and empathy, you often receive the same in return. Not always immediately, not always perfectly, but often enough to change your experience of life. Dale Carnegie's message is ultimately a hopeful one. It says that no matter your background, your personality, or your past mistakes, you can learn to communicate better. You can learn to influence positively. You can learn to build relationships that lift you instead of draining you. This is not reserved for extroverts. It is not reserved for leaders or speakers or salespeople. It is available to anyone willing to look beyond themselves and see the person in front of them. So as this journey comes to a close, don't think of this book as something you listen to. Think of it as something you live. Live it when you speak. Live it when you listen. Live it when you disagree. Live it when you lead. Live it when you make mistakes. Because every interaction is a chance to practice. And if you ever forget these principles, return to the simplest truth at the heart of everything Dale Carnegie taught. People want to feel important. When you help them feel that way, sincerely, respectfully, and consistently, you change not only their behavior, but your own life as well. And if you ever forget these principles, return to the simplest truth at the heart of everything Dale Carnegie taught. People want to feel important. When you help them feel that way, sincerely, respectfully, and consistently, you change not only their behavior, but your own life as well. Now, let's stay here for a while, because this truth deserves more than a passing thought. It deserves reflection. It deserves intention. And it deserves action. Think about how many moments in your life slip by on autopilot. Conversations where you nod but don't really listen. Interactions where you speak but don't really connect. Days where you are physically present but emotionally elsewhere. None of this makes you a bad person. It makes you human. But it also means that opportunities for connection are constantly passing you by. What Dale Carnegie offered the world was not a formula for success, but a philosophy for living with people. A reminder that every person you meet is fighting a silent battle, carrying invisible worries, unspoken hopes, and a deep desire to be seen. So here is the invitation. Not a challenge, not pressure, just an invitation. Slow down. The next time someone speaks to you, give them your full attention. Put aside the phone. Quiet the inner commentary. Look at them. Hear not just their words, but their emotion. You don't need a perfect response. Presence is enough. And notice what happens when you do this consistently. People relax around you. They open up. They trust. Not because you are impressive, but because you are attentive. That is influence in its purest form. Now think about appreciation. How often do you think something kind about someone, but never say it? How often do you assume they already know? Let today be different. Say it. Express it. Even if your voice shakes. Even if it feels awkward. Tell someone you appreciate their effort. Tell someone you admire their patience. Tell someone you're grateful for their presence. You may never know how much that moment matters to them. For some people, it might be the only genuine appreciation they hear all week, or all month, or longer. This is how you become someone people remember, not for what you achieved, but for how you made them feel. Now let's talk about conflict, because this is where most people abandon these principles. It's easy to be kind when things are easy. The real test comes when emotions rise. The next time you feel the urge to argue, pause. Just for a breath. Ask yourself one question. Do I want to be right? Or do I want to be understood? Often, you cannot have both at the same time. When you choose understanding first, you don't lose yourself. You gain influence. You create space where real dialogue can happen. You turn an argument into a conversation. You turn opposition into cooperation. This does not mean tolerating disrespect. It means responding with clarity instead of aggression, firmness instead of hostility, confidence instead of ego. Now bring these ideas into your work life. Whether you are an employee, a manager, a freelancer, or an entrepreneur, people skills will shape your future more than technical skills ever will. People remember how you treat them under pressure. People notice how you handle mistakes. People watch how you speak about others when they are not present. Be the person who lifts the room instead of draining it. Be the person who encourages growth instead of assigning blame. Be the person others trust when things get difficult. Over time, this reputation compounds. Doors open. Opportunities appear. Not because you demanded them, but because people want to work with you. And now, let's take this somewhere deeper. Apply these principles to your closest relationships. The ones that matter most. The ones that shape your emotional world. Listen without fixing. Appreciate without expecting. Correct without humiliating. Disagree without disrespecting. Love grows where safety exists. And safety is built through empathy, patience, and presence. If there is someone in your life you feel distant from, don't wait for the perfect moment. Create a small one. A message. A conversation. A gesture of understanding. You don't need to solve everything. You just need to start. Now turn inward for a moment. Because this journey is not only about others. How do you speak to yourself when you make a mistake? How do you motivate yourself when you fall short? How do you treat yourself when no one else is watching? If your inner dialogue is harsh, critical, and unforgiving, it will leak into your interactions with others. Compassion outward begins with compassion inward. Acknowledge your effort. Forgive your imperfections. Encourage your growth. You are learning. You are practicing. That is enough. Now imagine what your life could look like 6 months from now if you lived these principles consistently. Not perfectly. Consistently. Imagine fewer unnecessary conflicts. Imagine deeper conversations. Imagine relationships that feel supportive instead of exhausting. Imagine confidence that comes from connection, not comparison. This is not a fantasy. This is the natural outcome of understanding human nature and respecting it. Dale Carnegie's work has endured for generations because it speaks to something timeless. Long before technology, long before social media, long before modern psychology, he understood one essential truth: people want to feel valued. And that truth has not changed. So here is your call to action, not as a viewer, but as a human being. Choose one principle from this journey and practice it today. Not all of them, just one. Maybe it's listening fully. Maybe it's expressing appreciation. Maybe it's avoiding an argument. Maybe it's correcting someone with kindness. Maybe it's being gentler with yourself. Write it down if you need to. Commit to it for one day, then another, then another. Change does not happen in dramatic declarations. It happens in small, repeated choices. And if this video helped you see people, and yourself, with a little more clarity, help it reach others who may need the same reminder. Like this video so the message can travel further. Subscribe to the universe of book so you can continue these deep, life-shaping journeys with us. And in the comments, share the one idea you're taking with you today. Your words might help someone else more than you realize. Because in the end, influence is not about how many people know your name. It's about how many people feel better because they met you. Carry that with you. And remember, every interaction is a choice. Choose empathy. Choose respect. Choose understanding. That choice, repeated over a lifetime, changes everything.